So how are you feeling as far as what'd you do the other day? You screwed something up. What'd you do? Your lat or your back?
That was a dumb squat.
You're supposed to be an exercise professional.
Right. I was doing the safety squats, and the J cup was just a little too high. I think like Shaq or someone was squatting before me, and when I was unracking it with lighter weight, obviously it was pretty easy, but I worked up to I think 405 on there, and I couldn't get the right side to come off. So instead of lifting up like you should and walking back, I turned my entire body and then lifted the weight and just felt fire in my lat.
Not smart. No. Twisting, torquing under heavy load.
Right.
Not good for the body. So let's all learn something today.
We still make mistakes.
Yeah, I'm still human. Unfortunately, haven't quite gotten past that part yet. But regardless. So welcome back to the Silver Bullet Podcast, guys. We stumbled upon something last week on a question. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, we got a bunch of questions from some members of our facility, but also a couple people that are not, that I've actually never heard of. I was very, very excited to get some questions from some outside people here. We answered a lot of the questions, and one of the things came up. I can't remember what question it was, but it had something to do with recovery, and we really wanted to dive into a specific. We've done a recovery podcast, but there was a very specific one that was talking about muscle soreness.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we wanted to kind of give you our take on this, as far as, we can go into the physiology of why muscle soreness occurs. Mm-hmm. But I want to change the way people understand muscle soreness.
Right.
Right?
We should probably kind of set the plate and just explain that we are not talking about an injury.
No. Yes. Yeah, and that's probably a good thing to start with. Muscle soreness, okay, is an acute issue, okay? I think we can all agree with that. Acute meaning that it happened at a given time. We know where it's at. You can circle back to a workout that you did that left you sore, okay? Right. It's not something that built up over a long duration of time, which would denote it as a chronic issue, okay? So muscle soreness, okay? And everybody's experienced muscle soreness to some capacity, whether it's training, in a gym with a trainer, personal trainer, whatever, doing any kind of physical, strenuous activity outside, yard work, whatever. Yeah. But everybody's felt the effects of doing, strenuous work.
Right.
And muscle soreness, right? Think of the most common areas that you become sore.
I was laughing just a second ago. During football season, I remember the most sore I would get had nothing to do with two-a-days, well, kinda, and nothing to do with lifting weights. It was when you first put on your helmet.
Oh,
and
right.
my neck would just be
sore.
Up.
Yeah. A lot of those muscles trying to work to stabilize that extra pound or two that's on your head.
Right.
Yeah. So it's everybody's felt muscle soreness in some capacity. Mm-hmm. It's not always fun. It does, hinder a little bit of your everyday life or your living. When you're sore, obviously you don't want to do a whole lot of stuff. So the overwhelming question that people always have is, one, what is it? Mm-hmm. Two, how can I prevent it? And three, is it a beneficial thing for me to go through?
Yeah.
And so that really came to be the reason for this podcast, is because when we were talking about recovery, muscle soreness came up, and you made the quote, or I think you said, muscle soreness isn't a indicator of a good workout, and I 100% agree with it. Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of pulling in some information that we wanted to talk about, and stumbled upon a quote from somebody, and I failed to be a proper journalist here and quote and give credit to the person, because I can't remember.
That happens?
Yeah, that happens a lot, and I'm just aiding the problem. Who was it? Doggone it. Anyways, Kevin Carr, there you go. The misconception that you need to be exhausted, sweaty, and breathless to gain benefits from exercise is probably the greatest prevailing myth that exists today, and it leads many gym goers chasing fatigue instead of real progress.
Sure.
He doesn't exactly say, DOMS or muscle soreness, but that state of being physically depleted is all tied into this, okay? And so what I see is that, people look at, muscle soreness, and it's like, hey, if it hurts, it's working, or that you did the right thing. And I would disagree a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Being sore from a workout doesn't tell you that the workout was good. It tells you that you didn't recover well enough.
Right.
And so there's a couple things you got to talk about when you're talking about, recovery, because first off, okay, what you just explained, like during football, when do you become sore? Granted, give a little background to what you do for training and why that matters. You know what I mean?
When do I personally get sore? For me, just the way that I've been lifting over the last couple years, I do a lot of heavy movements. So if I go outside of a typical range of 5
Sorry,
reps,
I make a lot of noise in my shaker box.
I will. I'll be sore because that's a different, stimulus that I'm providing to the body, and it has to then adapt to that. Or if I do some very slow eccentric movement, that lights me up,
right,
big time.
So now, I guess in my realm of when I am usually the most sore is whenever I'm training, or excuse me, whenever I am changing training. For the lack of better words, yes, I'm changing a training stimulus. Okay, I'm a weightlifter. I enjoy weightlifting. I still, designate myself a weightlifter. Clean and jerk, snatch, working towards heavy totals. Very small in terms of metabolic capacity. Okay, I'm not a very good heavy breather, but. The most sore I've been recently was, back when we were able to open the gym back up, and I found out that I acquired an elk tag out in Idaho. Like a weightlifter that can't breathe. A weightlifter that can't breathe very well at high elevation is not going to be a good match to being out in the mountains. So my training shifted into more of the metabolic capacity. I need to get breathing hard. I need to get my lungs in shape. I need to get my legs in shape for endurance.
Yeah. Let's pick the best time to start having to breathe harder when there's like 105% humidity in here.
So that's when I became the most sore.
Yeah.
Okay. Same holds true for any other person out there. If there is a change in training stimulus, and that could be a stimulus change of doing nothing to doing a little bit, or doing a little bit of something into just doing a little bit more,
right?
Or changing from workout plans, going from doing yoga to doing CrossFit, or doing, powerlifting to doing Pilates, like you are going to be more sore. One of the most hilarious examples I can give you, and everybody thinks that it has to go to the most extreme to create the soreness. So like the example I use, a yoga person going to CrossFit. I'm gonna tell you right now that doing the opposite would probably make you more sore if you were doing one for a lot longer period. Because I watched a grown man, lineman when I was in college, do hot yoga for
that's some rough stuff
for a spring class, and he was a football player. The dude is in the trenches. The dude is beat up all the time. He swears he's never been more sore than after one of those sessions.
Yeah.
So it's a change in stimulus that your body's not accustomed to. It's the name of the game, right?
I think we should educate our viewers on. A good coach is going to, number one, understand the goals of the audience that they're working with, their client, or whether it's online or whatever. So they program for that specific goal. They're not programming for a feeling, and they're not programming for soreness.
Sure.
If you have a coach that just programs to make you tired, that probably doesn't line up with your goal unless you just wrote on the paper, I want to be fatigued, like you said in your quote. So, and then for us, like we have to understand how to get the most out of that individual while allotting for recovery.
This is the epitome of my biggest pet peeve with the fitness industry and everybody who claims to be a self-proclaimed expert.
Yeah.
Literally a 4-year-old can write down a workout that will make you sweat and be hot and exhausted, and you think it was the best damn thing you've ever done.
Sure.
Like literally a 4-year-old could do that.
I know.
And
we're sorry.
Anyway, yeah, I'm super sorry that people out there have to navigate that person.
Yeah.
And the bad part is you can go pay $1,000 and go get your CrossFit certification and be able to go do that. Now, don't take that as a bash against CrossFit. They're making money. They're a pretty good business. They got to figure it out.
Yeah.
However, there's a small majority of those gyms out there with coaches that truly know what the heck they're doing, and they do it well.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, people are just flipping members every 3 months. They can't get anybody to hang around.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just they're tired of, for lack of better words, getting their ass handed to them every day, and you just can't recover from it.
Yeah.
Anywho, that it does tie in a little bit, okay? But the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things I think you have to understand is, yes, you have to have a well thought out plan with a coach that can program for you if you want to really get on top of, muscle soreness, okay? Now keep in mind, if muscle soreness is the only thing that you're worried about during your fitness, realm, goal, whatever, you're sitting pretty good. Okay, muscle soreness isn't all that bad. Okay, because it does deplete. It does get better the more that you do it. The first initial workouts that you do, physiology is going to be really ticked at you.
Sure.
Really ticked at your body.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
It's not going to be good. But the problem is if you stop, it will in fact never get better. We see this all the time.
Yeah.
Perfect example. When we have somebody come in, and this is what we used to do, okay? And we changed things up a little bit just because we evolve as a business.
I think I know where he's going here.
Yeah. We used to have people come in and try 2 free workouts.
Yeah.
Like, come try 2 free workouts. Here's where this bit us in the butt.
Yeah.
We would get the first workout done and go and get the person afterwards and say, hey, when do you want to come in for your second workout? And they would always wait till like the end of the week. So they'd come in for the first one Monday and wait to come in for the last one Friday. By Wednesday, Thursday, delayed onset muscle soreness is in, and they cancel their second session, and we almost never saw them again.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. And this is why I really believe that, 2 times a week just is horrible for you. Like, you have to come in and do 3 workouts a week so that way you can stay on top of movement.
Yeah, any individual wanting any sort of change with their body composition or their strength, they have to train 3 times a week, or it's just going to be maintenance.
Yeah.
You are maintaining a specific state. And we're not saying you can't or won't see results training 2 times a week. It's just not optimal.
We've seen a person do 2 times a week and do really, really well.
Yeah.
But half the stuff they're doing outside of the facility was 10 times more than the average person.
Right.
So it's extremely beneficial to be in there 3 times a week. But getting back into muscle soreness as a mechanism, what is essentially going on with muscle soreness? Look, when you train, resistance training, okay, when you lift weights, when you move in a way that your body hasn't been used to, you essentially experience micro tears, or what they would call like micro trauma, quote unquote, right? I think that's what they say. It's micro tear. Like, you are tearing muscle fibers. And it sounds worse than it actually is.
Yeah.
Your body's meant to do this, and it's okay. It's just how it continually adapts. Shock absorption, maximal contraction, eccentric contraction. So if you, let's dumb that one down a little bit. I keep forgetting I can't talk physiology too much here. As you flex your bicep, as you shorten that range of motion and the bicep gets bigger, you are doing a concentric contraction, which means the muscle is shortening. If you were to hold on to a weight and you were to lower that arm, but that muscle still be under tension, it is then considered an eccentric contraction. And a lot of people think that eccentric contraction is the only thing that really causes like delayed onset muscle soreness, or that real change, it's a change in stimulus.
Yeah.
So
I can attest to that.
But 90% of the times, how do you train? Do you train eccentric?
No.
It's a different stimulus.
Right.
That's why you're sore.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't just say, oh, there's correlation there, that must be the causation. It's not really. It's a stimulus you're not used to.
Sure.
But, yeah, eccentric has its place for a lot of different things. So when we get soreness, okay, here's where I have a real problem with people, and I'm not feeling like BSing around today, okay? When you are sore, you need to differentiate what you want from that soreness. Do you want the soreness to go away, or do you want it to heal? Which one do you want? Because when one goes away, it doesn't necessarily mean the other one happened either.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, just because you rid pain doesn't mean you've healed the issue.
So we haven't dealt with the root cause.
Oh, son of a gun. Okay, so anyways, here's the thing. Common treatments. If you get muscle soreness, and I literally just looked this up on Google just out of curiosity. Like, what's the best way to help with muscle soreness? Like, one of the very first things was ice and painkillers. Like, literally, ice and painkillers.
Because that's the most available information on Google.
For sure.
Just because the majority do it doesn't mean it's right.
But here's the thing. I will say that those things will help get rid of soreness.
For sure, yeah.
But they did not
right.
heal the issue. They did not fix the issue. You've essentially blunted the healing process.
Yeah, we got to ask a better question.
By ridding inflammation, right? How can I make my body more acceptable to training stimulus that won't yield such a negative result?
Right.
I don't know if I worded that well. It made sense in my head. But essentially, if I teach my body to heal at an alarming rate, and I provide it with everything it needs to heal at an alarming rate, my DOMS, my delayed onset muscle soreness, will be lessened of that than somebody who obviously has none of the healing capacity that I do. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The question we should ask: how can I get the body to recover the best?
Yeah.
Or how can I heal the quickest?
Yes.
Instead of how can I manage
Keep in mind,
soreness?
And going back, just like you said, we're talking muscle soreness. Mm-hmm. We're not talking injury.
Right.
We're talking muscle soreness. You did a heavy squat day on Monday, Wednesday, your quads are killing you. Like, that's muscle soreness.
Yeah.
Do you want to heal so that way you have a chance to adapt, or do you want to cut it short and fix the pain? Right? Now, if you're on
we need to do a podcast on squats are bad for your knees.
Yeah. So essentially, you have to understand the two things. Which one do you want? Because most people are like, oh, if you want to heal, get rid of those DOMs, just pop a couple Advil. Like, you are not fixing anything. You are dulling pain receptors so that way you don't feel the crap going on in there. It's the whole reason why cortisone shots don't work.
Sure.
Like, you just trying to dull pain receptors and go ahead and just keep grinding away and screw yourself up.
Yeah.
Okay? So now, if we know that that's a common thing that we see, okay, you get sore muscles, you need to rest, ice, compression, elevation, the rice drill, all that stuff, okay? That's pain management. It's not healing, okay? If you want to get rid of pain, have at it.
Go push a heavy sled.
Okay, have at it. If you want to heal, let's talk about healing opportunities, okay? The best thing you can do to heal sore muscles.
Move.
Go. You got to move.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you have to start facilitating different nutrients, blood flow, allow the body to get specific things to the group to allow for recovery and repair to take place.
Yes.
As long as, again, we're eating the right types of foods.
Yeah, a lot of things play in here.
Yeah.
But you have to move. Mm-hmm. You cannot sit and wait for them to get better. Do you know when you sit and wait for them to get better? When you sleep.
Yeah.
Not when you're awake and your body is sitting there pumping nutrients to places that it needs to go for working muscles, okay? You have to move. I had this conversation the other day. Our in-house chiropractor here at our facility is actually going to sit down and do a podcast with us in a couple weeks. He and I work very carefully together with some of our clients, and also just working on, we established a lower back rehabilitation program together with a lot of consultation. And he and I are in agreement that one of the worst things you could do if you ever have any kind of acute back issues is to literally do nothing.
Yeah.
It's to sit and wait. Make an appointment with the chiropractor and sit on your couch until the day gets here. That is the worst thing you could possibly do.
For sure.
Because whatever the acute issue was, whatever might have happened, we're not negating the fact that you might have an injury, but whatever you have done, you have got to start working on providing nutrients for it to heal. And if you sit down, it's already a joint of very minimal movement anyways.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a whole lot of blood flow happening to that area. You've got to move. Keep circulation up.
Yeah, we don't want to get down the whole, you should never sit. Sitting is awful and it's evil. But, our bodies are intended and meant, they're created to move and move a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to rest for sure.
Standing desks are great, but guess what? If you're still in one position, you're not moving, right?
Sure, yeah.
Now they make the standing desk with the treadmill on it. You seen those?
Oh, yeah. $2,900.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
When you
silly.
can, go, anyway.
So yes, we need to move. Okay, when you move, you're helping evacuate inflammation. You're helping provide nutrients to working muscles that need it. You need to move to help recover muscles, heal muscles. Okay, it's going to be uncomfortable to start, but guess what? That's why a stationary bike's like the best damn recovery tool there is.
Yep.
Your quads are sore, go get on the bike.
Right.
You know what I mean? There are so many different things that you can do to help with the recovery of your muscles that have nothing to do with anything that's in your cabinet. No supplement, no, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. None of that. Okay, it's movement. It can be static stretching after movement. And honestly, a continuation of the training that you're doing. I always joke with people, you know what the best way to recover from squats is?
Squat again.
Do more squats.
Right.
Like seriously, and then just focus on your recovery ability as far as the nutrients you're providing, the rest you're getting, the water you're taking in, all of those things. Huge for helping with muscles.
Yep.
But if you sit and wait, it will not get better.
No.
Because the next time you work out, it's essentially starting over.
It's going to be worse.
It can be.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. Especially when people go from like, I'm going to do a lower body workout, and they're like, oh my God, that hurts so bad. And then they go to do an upper body workout a week later because they're like, maybe this won't be as bad as the legs. DOMS is worse in the upper body than it is in the lower body. And the reason why is because you walk around on your legs all day. You don't walk around on your hands,
Right.
like your shoulders and chest.
Well, and like we'll get the text
everything.
messages or the calls, hey, what's the workout today? Because they're already sore in a specific area, and they're like, well, I'm just not going to come in. Like, we program so you can come in and recover. But so hear us out on that. We want you to come in and to train those muscles in a way that allows for specific recovery.
Well, and a lot of it is, and this is everywhere. This is in every facility I've ever been in a part of. When people are sore, they just don't want to work out because they're sore. It's your mind already telling you, hey, it would be a hell of a lot easier if we just chilled. But it's not what your body wants. It's what your mind wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we see it a lot. So anyways, so honestly.
Just being the nice guy now.
I am, you know what? Whatever. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's right, but it is what it is. Okay? Main reason that we see muscle soreness. Okay? Because let's say you're somebody who's been doing this for 4 years and you always have DOMS. Okay? And just as just to go back here, DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, usually happens within 24 to 48 hours of a training stimulus. So if you work out Monday,
Wednesday,
it's usually not until Wednesday that you feel it.
Yep.
Okay. Usually, if you're somebody who's been working out for 4 years, consistently doing a program, and you experience DOMS every week, what's going on? You know what I mean?
You're sleeping 3 hours a night.
I don't know.
Drinking excessively.
Something would tell me that I need to either sit down and figure out the training stimulus I need to be doing.
Yeah, it should be a red flag.
Or obviously pay attention to those aspects that you just mentioned, right? But here's the thing. Here's the reason why I see it. I don't just see it here at our facility. I see it on social media all the time, and it's everybody raves about it because it's that chasing that exhausted feeling, right? Everybody wants to chase the feeling. I'm putting in quotes here, the feeling that you worked out.
I love that word.
Dude, I'm swear, you know what I mean? I want to go so hard that when I'm done for the next hour, I feel as though that I just went through the ringer. There are plenty of things that happen, from a hormone level that would suggest I love this feeling. Your dopamine is going to rise like crazy, but it also plummets at some given point.
Yeah.
But we see people who are like, when they come into our facility, they're like, I want to work out 6 days a week. I want to do the highest intensity stuff you have. I want you to give me accessory work that I can do afterwards. And I want 300 different ab movements I can do on my off days. I'm like, oh yeah, on Sunday? Like, oh yeah, and on lunch break. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's 3 weeks into it and they're like crippled over and they can't move. It's like, hey, how's it going?
Sure.
We don't laugh to poke fun. This is what the mindset is of people who come in that just don't understand, physiology, I guess.
Well, that like we are taught, we're conditioned to think more is more, and like if you do more in here, you're going to get a better result, a better outcome. But we've seen it with tons of individuals in here and out of here. Like sometimes doing less actually will yield a better outcome.
Well, it's like going back to that quote. Everybody would rather chase the not experience, but the sensation of exhaustion, rather than take the small, detailed steps needed to see continual progress.
I think
it's more instant gratification.
That, and I also think we've mentioned this
empathy
on
thing.
An earlier podcast.
I feel good for myself.
Well, because some individuals still treat their training as a punishment.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I have to go in there and like I have to abuse my body now because I ate this or I did this or whatever, and it's like that's not healthy. You're never gonna
figuratively
be fulfilled with your workout.
Never. No, see that a lot too. Have seen it for years.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. You see the people who put the post out and they're like, I wonder how many burpees a corn dog is. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And most people do it to play fun.
Sure.
And I get it. I'm fine. And I'm fine with that. But what you don't know is there are literally people out there who think that because I've done this, I can now afford to do this. It's just like any person who does like side jobs these days. It's like, if I do this side job, I will be able to go do this with the cash and the money that I've gotten. It's just one of those things that we think of work for specific gratification.
Yeah.
You can't do that when you're talking about exercise.
You mean that like we can't just sacrifice and get to where it is we want to be?
You have to sacrifice.
Right.
Sacrifices have to happen a lot. But we can go as far as say that, everybody's going to chase the quote unquote new thing. You know what I mean? Think about it this way. There are new methodologies, training methodologies that come out all the time, and they will continue to come out. And a lot of it's going to have, sparkly, fancy workouts with, very good-looking people that are like, whatever they're doing, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how silly or, physiologically unsound it seems.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It also seems like whenever a new methodology comes out, a new quote-unquote recovery tool comes out. And I knew you were going to love getting into this aspect. Okay? Recovery tools are, in fact, recovery tools. They are meant to aid, not take place of, James.
For sure.
Why am I giving you?
He's
why
getting
am I,
on my case.
Why am I giving you grief about this?
Because I, unfortunately,
never mind the fact that you are currently injured.
Right. Actually, no. I am healed. I didn't lift for 4 days in a row. I saw Brandon last week, and today I did the same essential workout that I would have done prior to that injury, and I was successful.
Did you stay moving for those 4 days?
I did.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Promoting your healing. I just double checking.
He's getting ready to talk about the Theragun, especially. I will mention right here on this podcast. At times, I think placebo is more powerful than science.
You know what?
And
I am not going to disagree with that.
Like it's with like pre-workout or anything. So like for my own instance, if I feel like something can help me get into a better state to lift, squat and deadlift, especially heavier, quicker, I'm going to do it.
For sure.
I'm not saying that that's right.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And that's okay. Because I believe placebos work too. I really do. So the recovery tools, okay, the Theragun, if you've never seen one, never heard of one, there are many different brands out there. It was the first one that came out, the most well-known, I think. It's an oscillating gun that essentially has a blunted, soft tip on the end, and it just wreaks havoc on your muscles.
It's a DeWalt 20-volt drill with a
hammer drill.
Yeah, hammer drill with a foam ball at the end of it.
And it does really well at creating blood flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it does a good job at.
Yes, it helps with blood. Well, you tie those things in. Blood flow promotes recovery. I will agree. Blood flow can also help with injury prevention if you do it prior to a workout. I will agree with that. A Theragun will not help you recover.
No.
It will not give you better range of motion.
Helps me lift heavier.
Okay, so and it's a good thing that people know that though, because the recovery's on you. It's not on any tool. The tool is there to aid certain things.
Right.
Guess what? If you're getting a lot of blood flow in your body and you eat like crap, guess what's floating around your body?
Bunch of crap.
A bunch of crap nutrients. Okay, so and there were like stim machines. I know like the Mark Pro. People were getting really high and mighty on like ice therapy, cryotherapy and stuff like that. They are aids. They're not going to be your sole source of recovery. They just can't. They're not.
For sure.
And physiology will prove that to you over time. Might not be weeks for one person, might be years for one person, but eventually you're going to realize that body's not recovering very well.
Yeah, and I think like these tools, we got to look at things with some perspective here. A lot of these things are sold to, they're marketed to everybody, but
Right.
the group that's going to benefit the most are those elite athletes, and they just need that little bit of edge,
Oh, sure.
Like a Mark Pro allowing specific muscle contraction, that's exactly what it's going to do.
Sure.
It's going to get nutrients to an area to, again, promote more blood flow or recovery.
In a very specifically isolated area.
You're a person coming in here, you've been exercising for 2 weeks, and then you go spend $2,000 on a stim unit, like, let's just reduce some inflammation in your diet and get you moving.
Right.
Not do that.
Yeah, make some subtle changes that will be beneficial over the long term, not just the short term. Okay.
Sure.
Essentially, DOMS and muscle soreness, like it's going to happen. It will happen. People will. I personally, to my knowledge, there are no studies out there that suggest you can prevent DOMS. Like warming up is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's like the only thing that they can actually replicate and be like, it helps with injury prevention.
Yeah.
And usually if you're, lowering your chance of injury, you are lowering your risk for severe muscle strains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So essentially you can tie in a proper warm up. Okay. People get really tired of me in the warm ups that we do here. And that's okay, but like I'm going to make sure that you're not going to get injured.
Yes.
And if your warm up sucked, like that's on you. I've done everything I can.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that we've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Me specifically.
Yeah. Well, we used to let
warm up,
individuals
man,
kind of the warm up for what we do, especially in a group setting. Like it's a tough because we want the community, we want people to talk,
Sure.
we want to have fun, but like let's just do that at the end of the workout. Let's be intentional about what we're doing to help the body recover.
It's a hard thing to guide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of struggles for somebody who runs group classes. One of them is making sure that the warm-up happens, obviously making sure that everybody has an intentional understanding of what's going on, not just knowing the movements they're doing.
Yeah.
And then obviously making sure the music is good. Like it all sucks sometimes. Anywho.
Sorry, Pandora.
That's all right. So basically, there's not going to be any real prevention for muscle soreness, and you have to understand that, okay? But regardless whether it's muscle soreness or injury, whether that be a major injury or a minor injury, like healing opportunity comes through movement, and you have to know that, okay? The Theragun is not going to move you. An ice bath is not going to move you, okay? Most people, look at, recovery with ice baths. They're like, this is going to get me to the next training session. If you're in season, and when I say in season, if you're like competing, you're trying to get the competitive edge, and you know that you have to continually be seeking this stimulus, it can be helpful.
Yeah.
If you're working out 3 days a week, trying to lower your blood pressure, it's not helping you.
Yeah.
It's really not.
If you've ever done an ice bath, that's terrible. I remember after, like being a running back in high school especially, my body would just take a beating sometimes, and that's when I would have an ice bath, and the coaches, like after about the 7-8 minute,
Right.
that's when your body like no longer feels it.
Right.
They would walk in there and just move all that water around.
Dude, like it was, and looking back at it, like we would do it, in college, we would hop in the horse tank with ice in it, honestly, because our feet and our ankles were killing us.
Yeah.
And looking back at it, that helped.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for the reason that we thought it helped.
Yeah.
It wasn't making anything better. It was essentially just dulling all of our nerve receptors to the point we couldn't feel them. But guess what? The 1 mile walk back to the cafeteria, guess what was hurting by the time we got there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they have application, but not for the reason that most people think they have application, okay? And so, the other thing you can look at, and I told James that I wanted to bring it up just a little bit, not necessarily to toot our horn, But this is honestly just because this is pure feedback and understanding that we've experienced, okay, is that if you don't program for recovery with the same intention that you have for progress, you're going to run into a world of hurt eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a very specific reason why we program the way that we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, your program first has to yield a recovery need.
Sure.
If you don't, like, if we're just going to go through a few air squats and some jumping jacks, like, you can do that stuff all day, every day,
Sure.
have fun. Like, that's your prerogative, go for it. So, like, let's
And you
reach
could do
a goal
you could do it every day
and program for it.
and
you know?
probably do it every hour and be all right.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of resistance training.
Yeah.
Not exclusively, but pretty much. Okay, we do a lot of heavy lifting. Our classes, okay, our main bread and butter that we do is a large group class. We have anywhere from 16 to 20 people per class in a 3,500 square foot facility. We do a standardized warm up, and when I say standardized, it is standardized based on the work that we are doing that day.
Yeah.
It is not the same warm up. We used to do that.
Yeah, we
We
get
used
better.
to do that. We get better at it, right? So we do warm ups that are correlated with the movements we are doing on the day. Okay, something to get your heart rate up a little bit, some type of core activation, some type of unilateral movement. That makes up our warm up every day. From there we have
Explain those two things. Core
Which one?
activation, unilateral movement.
So core activation is going to be more of a pelvic control. Okay, so we do a lot of overhead stuff. We do a lot of pulling. We do a lot of compression of the spine. Us being bilateral creatures, you would think that we would have equal strength left and right side. The problem is we do not. We do unilateral strengthening work to wake up individual muscles, right side, left side. We do contralateral movements to do and accomplish essentially the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, contralateral meaning like right side, or it'd be like right hand, left leg moving at the same time.
Yeah.
And then right leg, left hand moving at the same time. So like
That's how you should run.
dead bugs, right? Yeah, essentially, walking is a contralateral movement.
Yeah.
But essentially, when you do contralateral movements under particular timing, you get better cross-firing to activation of muscles. Okay, look up something called the McGill Big Three, the bird dog. This will make more sense to you. So that goes through our warm up. Okay, and then we have some type of strength work. Our strength work is usually, like right now, we are in what would be a strength phase. Okay, we didn't get to do our strength camp because of COVID, so we're doing a miniature strength phase right now. We're doing 3 sets of 5, 2 sets of 3, and a heavy single. Okay?
Get jacked.
We've done a lot of volume ramping up until here. Okay, so now we've gone through not quite a hypertrophy phase, but more just a metabolic base. I need to see how much work can be done.
Yeah.
And so essentially they're working in progressive sets, meaning they're going to get heavier each and every set. By their first or second set of 3, they should have an idea of what their heavy single on the day could be. I like using heavy singles rather than percentages because it allows you to stay relative.
Yep.
Okay, percentages keep you fixated on what was my one best lift ever.
2.5 years ago.
But guess what? Environmental factors don't give a crap that you back squatted 400 pounds one time.
Yeah, you
okay?
can. Your max can change. What is it? 10, 20% in a
Oh, I
day.
bet.
It's
Oh, yeah.
nuts.
So we do relative intensities, okay, and that takes a lot of understanding and familiarity within training to understand how that works. Because some people were like, "Oh, well, that felt heavy. I'm good," and it's like, okay, you didn't really quite. You kind of missed the boat there. But the more that you do it, the more that you understand your relative intensity. So they find a heavy single, and immediately after, there's a static stretch associated with the main problem area with that movement. Okay? When we do heavy deadlifts, as soon as we're done, we're doing a static piriformis stretch. There's one area that I know usually yields the best chance of recovery for that movement.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the reason we're doing a static stretch after the compound movement is because everything that's going to follow is going to be unilateral based, or it's going to be single joint. Okay, so I'm not concerned with doing static stretching afterwards. Usually like, oh, you got to do that after your workout, okay? This is working pretty well.
We cram a lot into an hour.
Yeah, so after that's done, the unilateral work happens. So like, I want to say they were deadlifting today. What else are they doing? They're doing barbell RDLs. They're doing some glute activation, single leg glute bridge, I think, and then something else, okay? And we'll do that for a couple sets, superset back and forth. We rest, we recover for a minute, we go into our GPP. Our GPP carries some different emphasis. Okay, one day it can be looked at more like a volume accessory work, especially if we're trying to get better activation or promote recovery.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're trying to promote recovery for the next day, guess what? We're not going to be doing anything high intensity. Like, it's going to be movement.
Yeah.
Okay, like we'll
GPP,
do,
general physical preparedness.
Yeah, we'll do back squats one day, or on a Monday. And then for the GPP, we'll do Cossack squats, which is a unilateral lateral lunge. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, why are we doing these? My legs hurt. And I said, it's for your hip health. It really has nothing to do with your strength right now. It's hip health, healing opportunity. Okay? But then there's other days of the GPP, I need to see what metabolically we are capable of. But most of everything that we do stays under 12 minutes. Okay? Keep in mind, I have an hour. All right, I'm not doing CrossFit to the point where I'm trying to find out what you can do in 50 minutes, because a lot of my demographic doesn't need to find that out.
No.
Okay, so we stay under 12 minutes in more constantly varied variables. Oh God, I said constantly varied. People are going to talk in CrossFit. Okay, they are varied intervals. Okay, and most of them stay under 12 minutes. So, and that can be a lot more calisthenic stuff. We don't do as much gymnastics. We do a hell of a lot of pull-ups, but that's about it. Okay, and
he's got this stuff figured out.
It's taken me 3.5 years to figure out the best
He loves
system.
it though, and that's why he can talk about it forever.
And so, you go from one piece of the pie to the next, and you start looking at, okay, the individual days. So I've got my day figured out, how it's going to work, okay? Warm-up, dynamic warm-up, strength, stretch, accessory, core. Oh yeah, by the way, we do all of our core work in the warm-up. I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
We don't do core work at the end. You know why? Because people leave.
Yeah, well, let's get our core
work,
ready to rock and roll.
And core is one of the most important things, and so we'll put core work in at the GPP as well. That way we get it done. But anyways, so now you look at the days of the week. Okay, how can I program this kind of stuff for an opportunity of recovery? Easiest thing is to do 3 days on, 1 day off, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. Mm-hmm. Okay, I am programming a purposeful rest day on Thursdays and Sundays. Do nothing except for things at home with your family. That's it. Don't focus on strength training. Don't focus on resistance, anything like that.
Yeah, everyone's like, well, what can I do on that day? I got to be able to do something. Go on a walk, ride a bike, go swimming. I don't know.
Go
play in the woods. Do something that's not with the mindset of trying to do resistance training.
Look, I ran a CrossFit gym for a little over a year and a half, I think. It was Monday through Saturday. Mm-hmm. Hit them hard. And if we were in quote unquote preparation for the open, we were lifting Sunday too.
Yeah.
7 days a week, the intensity is all that we chased. And we always wondered why we sucked so better in the open, man. We were ground to a pulp. So we took a step back, okay? And you look at it with a little bit more of a different, focused lens. Look, we need to recover. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, it doesn't matter what you do.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if you're doing hopscotch. If you can't recover from it, you're not going to see any results.
Right.
You just won't.
You are not a good hopscotcher.
No, at all. Okay? So that goes into, that's just one piece though. That's an example of a microcycle or a mesocycle. Now you got to look at, a week, a day would be a microcycle, mm-hmm. quote unquote. Okay, this is how you really dive into programming. And one day when we get on this topic, you won't get me to shut up. Okay. But if you have a coach and you're like, look, this is my goal. This is how he or she would look at programming for you. One, you look at the daily sessions. We just talked about it, what they would look like. Look at the microcycle. Look at a weekly basis. What does a week look like for you? Where does the rest and recovery come from? Then you look at it as a mesocycle, where that's 4 weeks or 6 weeks at a time, a month and a half, 2 months. Okay, what does that time period look like? Yeah. And then you look at the macrocycle, which is a year. Okay, what does that look like? The biggest things you have to know is that your body needs the time to recovery. It needs an undulating approach to its programming,
right.
And it needs to have regulation through those cycles. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, the class that we just talked about, they weren't in a quote-unquote strength phase with their main lifts. They were in an accumulation phase. They were building volume, testing their metabolic thresholds. They were essentially doing hypertrophy training, and that's a different stimulus than strength training.
Yep.
Okay? And especially when they were more sore from it, it's it's a different stimulus, right? And then I slam, 6 sets of 3 on them, and they're like, I'm still sore. Why is this happening? It's a different stimulus, okay? And we undulate up and down. Okay, there are days and weeks, the first and second week I might really ramp it up on people, like really challenge them with some of the GPP. And the third week we'll back it off. And the fourth week we hit it even higher. And then we come back down a little bit. First and second week we build, third week we rest, fourth week we peak. Okay, and you have this undulation approach that allows your body a much greater chance of actually recovering from that stimulus, rather than just keeping the pedal down, chasing exhaustion, having muscle fatigue, and thinking that doing all that crap is going to yield what you want, because it won't.
Nope.
If I could drop this mic, I would. So
we're getting new mics coming in at some point when they're not all sold out. He can drop this mic at that point.
So anyways, and we're not going to go any further into programming or exercise yet. That will come. You can mark down the date. It will be, hang on. It will be August 20th. First programming exercise template. You want to learn how to get yourself exercise doing the stuff you need to do in order to see your result? Tune into that one.
Here we go.
That was essentially all we wanted to hit on, guys, was muscle fatigue. Look, it is going to happen. That's okay. Yep. You have to understand what you want. Do you want it to heal, or do you want it to feel better? You want it to feel better? By all means, go pound your ibuprofen. But let me tell you, there's a lot of negative things that come from that. If you want it to heal, you got to get up and move. You got to sleep well. You got to eat well. You got to do neat activity, non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, stuff like that. What else?
I think you hit it, man.
You got to
know what you want to do, and if you're doing something that you don't need to do, you're wasting your time.
You got to chill. And you got to be okay with looking at the people on Instagram and being like, you're an idiot.
Right.
I see that you have a six-pack, and I applaud you for that, but that doesn't mean you're healthy, and that doesn't mean that your goal is essentially what I want. It doesn't mean that the path that you took has to be the path that I take to get there.
Yeah.
There are too many people that have the FOMO of that. It's like, well, if that's what she did in order to get that, that's what I have to do. It's not the case. Yeah. Half the time, the stuff you see on your influencer's Instagram page, they didn't even do that. They probably got that from somebody.
Yeah, it's just we use social media. It's a good tool, but when it comes to like fitness and health, there's always going to be a product associated with it.
Sure.
And then that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And that product is not going to work for every single person viewing.
No. And it might, and the bad part is it will work for some.
Yeah.
But you're always going to be in a better understanding if you apply yourself as the majority instead of the minority. Even though that's where it gets confusing again. They're going to be like, this works for everybody. Well, I am everybody. That means it works for me.
Right.
It's one of those things that you got to navigate the muddy water. Hopefully you learned a couple things. You can be like, go comment on your influencer's page. Hey, what do you do for recovery? And if they say, I use a Theragun, just delete.
Or I use this shake right here. It's great.
This
it makes
shake,
me less.
This little wrap that goes around my belly.
Right.
Oh my gosh. All right. Good talk, guys. Just remember, you can't go ham 100% of the time. It's just not going to work for you.
No.
I don't care how old you are. All right. There were even days that we were younger that we realized we couldn't figure out why we were so burned out for a little bit. And we tie it back. We know exactly why it was. And the recovery thing has to happen. Muscle soreness will happen. That's okay. Ask yourself what you want to do from it, or what you want to do with it. Do you want to recover from it, or do you want it to go away from a pain standpoint? And then from there, keep moving.
That's it.
You just got to keep moving. All right, guys. This is Silver Bullet Podcast.